86% of the family audience is getting the majority of their content from YouTube. They're not getting it from Netflix. They're not getting it from Nickelodeon. The wife was like, one day said, okay, snap out of it. Either pick something else to do with your life or get over that and move on and protect yourself better next time. If you get an audience, people will show up to support you. Be designing characters like crazy. So when you meet somebody, go, look at what I did. Make stuff. Put it out there.
Is indie animation the future? With Hollywood shifting, streaming evolving, and new tech making high-quality animation more accessible, what does that mean for creators? Welcome to The Mo Method, where we talk to creators whose passions became professions. Today, I'm joined by Ross Venokur, an industry veteran with 30 years in the film industry, 15 of which focused in independent animation. He's sharing how indie creators are changing the game, why creative freedom matters, and how you can navigate the business side of making lasting art.
Hi, my name is Ross Venokur. I started as a writer in Hollywood. I've been a writer for 30 years now, and in the last 15 years, I took a turn into independent animation. I've written and directed 3 independent animated features. The last one, Rally Road Racers, came out theatrically globally in May 2023. And I make a lot of animated content. I'm just finishing an animated series, a 14 episode, 22-minute series. And I've been making a ton of content in the last 2 years for various clients on YouTube. A lot of like short form, 2.5 minute episode series. But I mean, I do all sorts of stuff. I do live action stuff. I get involved in all sorts of weird things. But the main focus has really, for the last 15 years, has been independent animation.
Mm-hmm. How'd you start with screenwriting? Did you go to school for it? Or you just kind of like self-taught and read books?
How did I start screen? Well, the reality is, I went to school originally. I got into college with a sculpture portfolio. Like,
oh wow,
like real 3D, sculpting, a lot of metal work. And I thought I was going into visual arts. And then when I was a freshman in college, my brother, who was a senior in a different college, called me and said, hey, I'm going to move to Hollywood next year and become a writer. I think we'd be good writers together.
I've heard that one before,
Yeah, so basically, I ended up I took one art class at college, a color theory class, and I got really into reading, which I'd never been into before. I became a literature major and got really into writing.
Oh, wow.
And right after college, which I went in Manhattan, I moved out to LA and started writing. And I've written for a long time. My writing partner was my brother and another guy named Dave Getch. And then I did a ton of writing on my own. We did some films together, some television, but I was writing children's novels at the time. And I was very fortunate. I had early success. So when I was 21, I got hired as a writer on an MTV show.
Oh wow!
And I've been a writer ever since. I jokingly used to say I paid my dues because I PA'd for one day. And while I was a PA on a music video, I heard, that MTV was looking for writers. I submitted jokes and I got hired.
Nice. So what show was that for?
It was called Singled Out. A lot of people don't remember it, but it was sort of the beginning of the reality craze. It was a dating show. Chris Hardwick was the host. Jenny McCarthy was the co-host. And it was. I learned a ton. We wrote a ton. I think we shot 5 episodes a day. We were it was just a mill, and met a lot of cool people and got into it. And then from there, I kind of got into some other MTV shows. I wrote on a Nickelodeon show called Keenan and Kel. I ended up writing an episode of the live action Tick for Fox, and it just grew from there.
Wow.
So, and hilariously, 30 years later, I'm suddenly Jason, my brother, and just re-teamed on something. We're about to launch a big kind of new way of looking at animation studio.
Oh, nice.
For YouTube, and it's pretty cool to be back with my original writing partners on that.
That's awesome. I feel like the animation industry is really coming back in a big way. Like, I think we've seen in the last, 5 to 10 years, maybe less, like some just really high quality animation stuff coming out. Like, like one of my favorite movies of all time is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I mean, like, that was just beautiful. And before that, like, I always enjoyed animation. And a lot of my friends, as I got older, would be like, "What, you watch animation? Like, that's for kids, whatever." And then Spider-Man came out, and I think that really opened up a lot of people's eyes to if you kind of tweak things and kind of bring a fresh style to it. Like you could do a lot of really cool things with animation that you just can't do with live action. No matter
Right.
how much you spend on VFX, like animation just gives you way more freedom. I mean, some of my favorite shows are anime. Like I love Invincible. I don't know if you've seen it. It's
I It's funny. I haven't seen it, but I have a lot of, the person who cast my last film, Linda Montaigne, she cast that show, and the
mm-hmm.
star of that show is one of the stars of my last film, J.K.
Oh wow.
Simmons. So like I am remiss in not watching it, but I have a lot to say about what you just said.
Yeah, for sure.
I so first of all, I sound like I'm being very name droppy, but the Spider-Verse was written and directed by Rodney Rothman, who just strangely is one of my oldest friends from second grade.
Oh
And we had
wow.
some fun in high school. We had a satire magazine together, and we had a band called Cucamonga Jones, where we sang original songs like Rabbis Eating Pork. It was, but anyway, that movie was a game changer, and almost annoyingly so, because every meeting since then is people like, it should look like the Spider Verse. It's like,
Yeah.
well, they did that really well, but there's room to continue to do other stuff. And
Right.
backing up to what you said about, the perception of animation changing, that has definitely been true in my life and my career. When I moved to Hollywood, I really wanted to do animation. Like my heroes growing up, the people who brought me to this business were like Jim Henson, Dr.
Mm.
Seuss.
Mm-hmm.
And early on, like I said, I was fortunate, I had a lot of success. That kind of got me on this trajectory of, doing well and like getting on to shows that paid well. And so I had agents who really repeatedly told me, animation is where people who can't get jobs go, like writers who can't work in adult
Mm.
go to animation. And I was really trying to get in at the time. I'm like, I had all these ideas for interstitial fun things to do for Nickelodeon, and I
Yeah.
just couldn't get those meetings because it wasn't being taken seriously. In my life, I felt like one of the turning points of that really started around the release of Shrek, because it
Mm.
opened up, like, it reinvented the animated feature. I think there was like a little golden era of like some Disney stuff when I was still in high school, like The Little Mermaid and Aladdin and all that. And
Yeah.
then Shrek came out and sort of changed the landscape of how people thought about animation, at least to me. And
Was that one
um,
of the first 3D animations?
it was one of the first. I mean, I think the first real one was probably Toy Story, and
Right. That's the.
then Shrek came out. And what I remember at the time, what the big talk of Shrek was that they had kind of solved the human problem, the uncanny valley of like no one had. If you remember, like Sid from the original Toy Story, he's just a crazy like human
Yeah.
kid. He just doesn't
Yeah.
look good. And it's funny because Shrek, um, everyone was really impressed by how they handled humans.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't held up that well, but like it's if you
At the
remember
time.
at the time it was amazing.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to be in that space, and I sold a lot of films that were in sort of the family space but weren't animated. And the thing that really got me over there was the writer's strike in 2008 and 2009. I just saw the writing on the wall that the whole business was changing, and
Mm-hmm.
that has really proven out. And it was, as with most things that I do wisely in my life, it came from my wife, who kind of sat me down and said, like, you're you're succeeding, but like it was this is how I used to describe it. She never said this, but you're failing upwards. Like I kept getting things set up and nothing got made, but then I get
Mm.
to set something else up. So I was making a nice living, I was supporting my family, but she said, like, look, I think you gotta kind of walk a little bit away from Hollywood and get into independent stuff and animation in particular. So that's what got me on the trajectory of making animated films. And in fact, the producer of all three of my anime films is John H. Williams, who produced Shrek. He was the
Mm-hmm.
originating producer of Shrek. But that began this journey of us kind of moving out of California. I moved for a movie to Toronto, moved to Montreal, moved eventually back to Ojai, California, where we lived for a long time. But along the way, realizing even independent animation, you're still getting finance. It's still some of the stuff. I mean, the traps of Hollywood were still there. And
Mm-hmm.
then sometime around after between my second and third movie, my wife interjected again and said, "Okay, this has been going great. I think we need to find a way to protect you even more." And so we formed our own animation company together, which was called EDH Animation Co-op. And the idea was, can we make something that not if it can protect me, maybe it can protect all the other artists? Because I'd seen a lot of what goes on in animation, like anything really, is like a lot of the people who are really giving their creativity and really making the projects great were getting like a small kind of fee for it, like their salary, and weren't ultimately going to benefit from you
Mm-hmm.
know like I think all the time about like whoever it is who actually drew the sketch of the Minions. Like Universal makes $1 billion or $2 billion a year
Right.
on that, but
Right.
I don't think that artist gets a cent on it.
Right.
so
Right.
so we really got on this mission to see, like, can we create in a way that all of the people who are meaningfully contributing are also benefiting, and that's still
Nice.
something we're working on. But
That's awesome.
it's a real big sort of passion of ours.
That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, that's really important, I think, because like I think a lot of people, like you're saying, like you do the work, you get paid whatever your salary is, but when the movie is successful, you're not. It's not like all your hard work is kind of left behind. You say, okay, thanks for here's your check for a few $100, and we're gonna go make a few
Yeah,
million.
I mean, I get that it's a business, of course,
Right,
and
right.
we all without it being a business, there'd be no
No
one to
movies.
finance this stuff. But I mean,
Yeah,
at the end of the day, great movies, ideas aside, great scripts aside, what are people really looking at? They're looking at the trailer and they're looking at the poster. And normally the poster is really billboarding the, if you have it, amazing character design, right?
mm,
Amazing
mm-hmm.
environment design. And that's going to be the thing that captures the imagination of your core audience, which, at least in my world of animation, is kids and families.
Right.
And it's crazy to me is not that there's not some, and I guess it's just whatever. But the Writers Guild for live action stuff, you own a piece of what you write, and
Yeah,
there's no equivalent for a character designer.
yeah.
Um, and I don't know. I would love to imagine that we're on our way to solving that problem and rewarding the people who do the real creative heavy lifting on
Yeah.
these projects.
That's really cool. Yeah, it's interesting just in general. Like the whole independent media space is really bigger now than it's ever been before. I mean, you see this across creative industries. Whether it be filmmakers who are just kind of making stuff in their backyard and posting on YouTube, or people who are not even making movies, just making YouTube content and making livings off of it. Like I had a guy on here who does 3D printing content. He makes these like cool 3D printed projects, and he makes videos kind of breaking down the process and going through it, and and that's how he supports himself. And and you see it in other disciplines also. You see it, the whole comedy scene has gotten very independent. A
Yeah,
lot of things have kind of moved into this independent space, which is, I think, it's great, because then people are making the art for the love of the art, and they're getting paid for it. They're getting, when the artist is giving it straight to the consumer, everyone who pays for it is paying the person who made it, which is kind of how it should be. It's a really cool kind of transitional phase we're going through. Like, also, obviously, it has its downsides. A lot of people we've been talking about, like, games and the whole mass layoffs in the AAA game space, and kind of the recurring thing a lot of people have been saying is that, yes, so now a lot of the AAA games have fired people, but now a lot of the AA games are really kind of coming up, and these smaller indie studios really kind of have the space now to shine, which is really cool. I think we're going to see a lot of just really great art come from it.
I think that's really interesting. I'm not connected in really any way to the game industry. I just, for whatever reason, gaming was never my thing. I
Yeah,
was way more about narrative content, so I haven't really heard that. But to me, that just parallels exactly what's going on in the kids' entertainment space and the entertainment space at large, which is, we're watching the dismantling of what we always thought of as like the big legacy
the
institutions,
Untouchables.
the studios, the networks. And what you're really describing is what I always am talking about, is the huge opportunity right now, which is we're in a place now where people have direct relationships with their audience. I
Yeah,
mean, the power of being directly, you don't need to command 80 million eyeballs like you used to have to do back in the days of, like, I don't know, like, the Cosby Show. But if you have a direct relationship with your audience, and that audience is several hundred thousand or several million
yeah,
strong, and they want to support what you're doing, and I see it so much in the independent space where it's a real relationship where
right.
you're actually
There's a
taking
back and
input.
forth.
You're taking input from your audience. You're giving back what they want. It's, you just see it all over this landscape. It's super powerful, and I
Yeah,
I think that really, I mean, that's the power of YouTube. That's
yeah.
why 86% of the family audience is getting the majority of their content from YouTube. They're not getting it from Netflix. They're not getting it from Nickelodeon. Um, you know, I love like legacy Nickelodeon shows, but I was on a meeting today. Someone mentioned they had a show on Nickelodeon, and I actually didn't fully realize that Nickelodeon was a fully functioning place still, because it's not like
You don't
it
hear
was.
about it.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I thought would be a sort of a brand forever, and I guess it probably is. But what I hear so much more about is this specific show that's
Hmm.
killing it on YouTube,
Yeah.
and I think I don't know. I think it feels like a land of opportunity to me right now.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest shows right now, like let's say, like I mean, my son's 2.5. The biggest, oh, he's three actually, 3.5. My bad. The biggest shows out now are things like Cocomelon and Blippi, and these shows that started as YouTube shows, and these people
Yeah,
have built empires. I mean, like there's merch. There's they like Blippi goes and he had a Netflix deal. He he went on a whole concert. Like you could
yeah,
go see him live, and then they recorded
yeah.
and put it on Netflix. I mean, it's crazy that these people are building empires. From nothing.
It's so true. The live event space is humongous for the kids. Well, like when my daughters, who are now a little bit older, but when they were young, I remember taking them to like Dora Live, which used to be
Yeah.
a thing that could only be staged by something like a Dora the Explorer on Nickelodeon with Paramount behind it. But like you said, these independent, if you get an audience, people will show up to support
Right.
you, and
Yeah.
that's where you suddenly get. And those deals are, like you're suddenly making licensing deals with Netflix instead of you're not giving away. They're
Yeah.
they're coming to you. It changes the entire dynamic of those deals. So, like I said, it just feels like opportunity, super
Yeah.
inspirational to me. And it's
Yeah.
really when Lenore and I started EDH, now, almost 10 years ago, that was our thinking, which was like, how do we get to a place where, since we were always creating the stuff anyway and building it out, how do
Right.
you get from like creation to distribution and still own your creation?
Yeah.
And
You guys were really ahead of the curve.
well, a lot of things happened along the way. Like we jumped in on the NFT thing, and our timing was just off. We missed the end of it, but like it really opened my. It was another way of opening my mind to like, oh, you could have this relationship with the community, and they support you making the content, and then you reward them for that. And so
Yeah.
that's still something. I just launched my own version of Winnie the Pooh on YouTube, and we're just kind of slowly
Nice.
letting it go. But like high quality, made for little kids, like almost no cuts, really sweet animation. I did a lot of it with a mutual friend of ours, Yariv. He
Yeah.
did a lot of the artwork for me, and it's amazing. Like we're not getting huge viewership numbers because it's very on the radar, but what we're seeing is insane engagement. People are showing up, are
Mm.
watching, watching the whole thing through. On
Yeah.
YouTube, if you get more than 30 seconds, that's considered a victory. We're getting people to
Yeah.
watch, 7 to 10 minutes of an 11-minute episode. So,
Yeah. Also,
um,
it's huge. The whole, like you were saying about the no cuts. I can't tell you how many people I see on like Instagram, these like, dad pages, and
yeah,
they'll their whole page is breaking down kids shows. And there's definitely a big push now for kids shows to kind of calm down, because a lot of kids shows for the longest time, especially when, maybe this came from TV, were very high energy, like cutting every 3 seconds, very bright colors, very overstimulating. And and people say, oh, this will cause the ADHD and all these different things, and I think there is some credibility to that. And it's really I think we're seeing a lot more of it. And it's really important to have these kind of like slower paced shows that kind of allow kids to focus in and like listen to the story,
right.
because they don't need the constant
Yeah, and
action.
also, what are we training them for? Just to talk about that show. So our there's a ton of Winnie the Pooh content out there, but our YouTube channel is called Storytime with Winnie the Pooh, and it was strangely. I was approached to do it a couple years ago by John Williams, and we both. He knew that Lenore and I were already thinking in this way, and he really wanted to contribute to the idea of, can we make stuff that's really for little kids? Like, let's accept the reality. Little kids are watching content. Little kids are going to be on some YouTube
Right.
stuff with their parents allow it, and that's fine. Um, but can we make stuff that's really designed for co-viewing? It moves at a pace, and so we always described it as like reading adjacent. Like it's like
Mm,
reading, but a little bit more. And you know, maybe it encourages families to go read Winnie the Pooh books or read other books
right.
together. And so we really slowed it down. I mean, I slowed it down to the point where my original versions of it had like no, I didn't even have close-ups. It was no, and then I was getting feedback from a lot of people like, at least can we punch in for like a line?
Mm-hmm.
So, but the camera angle, I think, never changes. So we only have 22 minutes of content. We just started posting it, um, and we're going to post in all sorts of forums and shorts and do all the things you have to do to grow a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting to see already just people who are finding it and enjoy it, and the algorithm is supporting that because the
Yeah.
YouTube algorithm has really changed to put quality first.
Right.
So there's just because there's such a sea of content, but I know from meetings I've had directly with YouTube that they want stuff that's good for kids. YouTube doesn't want to just be
Right. The brain
a,
rot.
a dumping, yeah, the brain rot thing that everyone's talking about. So if you can pull it together and make something small and independent and it's of high value or high quality, it actually will get supported by YouTube. So it's pretty
Yeah.
cool. It's
Yeah.
pretty
And
cool.
that's not even including things like Patreon and Discord. I mean, Discord less so for for the kids animation, but like I see a lot with like 3D sculptors, let's say, who go and build whole communities on Discord, and they're constantly engaging with their community, and so they build this fan base. Well, even if it's not so large, but this like really loyal fan base of people who just really like their work, really want to hear from them, and because they feel that they're engaging with the person and the person's engaging with them, and they love that because it's
Yeah.
it used to be like Hollywood was always like kind of pie in the sky, untouchables, whatever they put out you kind of have to accept, and it's not the reality anymore. It's a very different
No,
landscape.
it's very interesting, and we are definitely just starting to build out. I wanted to make a community play for this because I don't have more money to make more of them, but they're not terribly expensive. So the idea is, can we do exactly what you're talking about? Be it through Patreon. The other day I was launching my own Winnie the Pooh meme coin, just different ways. But obviously, well, I learned a lot from the NFT space, and one of them is on YouTube where kids go. It's not. It's just about Winnie the Pooh and content. It's not about
Right.
uh, buy this
Community.
meme coin and it'll support. But like
Yeah.
there are people who are still looking for utility in those kind of things. So I'm right now figuring out the pieces. Can I do something where we're making something of high quality? There is some reward built in for supporters.
Yeah.
Our show, all the characters, because you have to differentiate yourself from Disney, not just for legal reasons, but because there's so much great Winnie the Pooh Disney
Yeah.
content out there. One of all of our characters are all voiced by kids, which I think makes it really
Nice.
appealing to little kids. So I've been thinking about, is there a way to build a community and say, hey, if you're part of this community, we're just going to do all additional casting within this, and people can put themselves up, the community will vote, and your kid could be the voice of this character.
That's really cool.
So just trying to find ways to involve and connect families to the process.
Yeah.
And like you said, demystify the process, which is
Yeah.
you're welcome in. Like, come, we'll look at our storyboards, look at how we record, look how we make the
That's really
show.
cool.
If that's interesting to you, and if it's not, and you just want to watch it, just go to the YouTube channel and watch it. It's
Right.
like all things on YouTube. It's free. It's available.
Right.
It's there
Right.
for you to enjoy. So
Yeah, I remember like when I was a kid, I used to love like part of how I got into the industry in the first place is because I used to love watching the kind of the bonus content, like the behind the scenes content of how movies were made. I always find that so fascinating, and it would always be when you get it on a DVD or after VHS. I vaguely remember VHS. It was a little before my time, but yeah, the DVDs like they'd always have like that kind of like that bonus DVD. It was extra
Right.
disc that would have like the bonus content, and I used to find that stuff so fascinating. And I was 10, 9, 10, 11, like that kind of age, and just like it's cool to see how the things are made and to kind of get that sneak peek behind the scenes because it's just
Yeah.
it's especially if you're a creative kid, and you kind of dream of making your own movie one day or making your own comic book or whatever it is. Kids always love to kind of make stuff, and so it's cool to show them like, hey, like this is it's doable.
Yeah.
These are
It's
normal
doable.
people who are making
and
it.
it's never been more doable. The amount that technology has like lowered the bar to entry and has really made things that used to be impossibly expensive almost free.
Yeah,
It's really
yeah,
just about, are you super creative and are you willing to like figure it out? I
yeah,
mean, you can learn how to use any software for free online. You can get most software for free.
yeah,
It's really incredible. And I just
yeah.
want to say that I actually think I remember the first time I saw a VHS tape. So yeah,
Uh-huh.
we're different ages. When I started loving movies, you could only see them in the theater or if they happened to be playing on TV. And then suddenly there's this thing called the VCR, and that really was a game changer. But I still love that content you're talking about for DVDs. For Rally Road Racers, when we put it out, I was so excited when we finally put out the split screen between the storyboards and the actual movie.
Uh-huh.
I love that kind of stuff. I love
Yeah.
seeing the process. I love what but I love animation, so it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. I was just in Germany for this. It was like a toy fair called I can't pronounce it, but it's this huge toy fair, and there were two stands there that were really cool, really unique products. And I was kind of thinking about like in the kind of the modern day content creation space. So one of them, it was this woman. She made a product. It's called Green Screen in a Box, and I started like schmoozing with her because like I saw it and I instantly understood it. And she's saying, you're one of the few people that like actually gets what this is, because a lot of people look at it and don't really understand it. And we're chatting and I was asking her whole story. And so she was a school teacher and she had developed this idea, I guess, to make, kind of learning more engaging. And so it's literally a whole green screen setup that fits on a desk. It's not big. And then it comes with it's so a green floor that kind of flares out, and then like it's like a board. It's like a thin plastic kind of I don't know the materials, like what like a binder's made out of almost,
Mhm.
and with like two posts, and so the whole thing could fold up flat and fit into like an envelope essentially, and then and there's an app you download onto an iPad, and so it does all the keying and everything for you. So a kid could take their toys and and go like make a movie, and it
Wow,
had a stop motion feature, so kids like it was just super cool. And
I
so I
love
said to her,
that.
I said she was pitching it more in the education space 'cause that's where she came from, and I said to her like you should also really pitch like the hobby space because this would be great for kids or young adults or people who just kind of want to like play around and start to do their own animations and stop motion. Like it was super cool. And it just started fairly recently, and she's like, it's been a huge success. That was one that was really cool, and then another one that I met that was really cool. It was this company. They developed like a game. They called it Road to Hollywood, and so what it was is this company. They have a service. They are based in Switzerland. They have a service where it's one of these like team building exercises. So they'll come to your office with your team, and they'll bring special effects makeup and a cameraman and the whole thing, and they give everybody your role, and you're the director and you're the you're this actor, and everyone gets to their role, and they make whatever the movie is. And then at the end, somebody quickly edits it, and they come back together, and they watch their film together. So they
That's cool.
translated
I
that
love that.
experience. It's a great idea,
Yeah.
and so they translated that experience into a box. So you buy this box, and so anyway, it also has the cards, and it has a little makeup kit, and it has like all these things, and it's and it also has an app. And so the box is like a specific story because then you film it all on the app, and you follow it kind of gives you some basic storyboards or whatever, and then the app will like edit it for you and gives you like a final video. It's like a mob boss kind of movie. They're two just really cool products, and I told them
That's
I
amazing.
introduced them to each other. I said like you guys really got to do a collab.
Yeah.
You could
Yeah.
but it's like it's just so cool. Like it's just so fun and to see people who are like really doing innovative things, and you kind of think about like how that could be applied to just like the world of YouTube that exists now. Like I think the possibilities are limitless, really.
Yeah. I mean, those both sound great. Immediately started thinking how I'm going to look up green screen in a box right after this and all the things I'm going to do with
Yeah, yeah. I'll send you the information. I
it.
have her card.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, no,
I
it
love
was
that.
very
No,
cool.
it's
Yeah,
there's so much innovation happening right now, and I mean, obviously, the biggest thing that everyone's talking about is AI, and
right.
there's it's very controversial for a lot of reasons, but I've seen great things. To me, I've seen the most incredible things I've seen is AI in the hands of artists is
Yeah.
really a powerful tool, and I don't. For me, that sits fine with me. I don't see the difference between that and Photoshop or Illustrator in the hand of an artist.
Hmm.
Photoshop was loaded with AI for 15 years anyway,
Hmm.
and when the ability to start like generating stuff and making stuff, if you're really like a great artist who has these tools, it makes everything just that much more affordable.
Yeah.
And I've yet to see, and nor do I believe like we're going to really see AI that functions in the creative space without input from people, because
Yeah.
I think the people are obviously the heart of all these things. But when you start, like, even the way we're recording this podcast, like, that there's all this incredible software out there that's making things accessible to everyone, and
Yeah.
that's exciting. I mean, it's
Yeah.
really exciting.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you, in your professional opinion, like in this vein, what's some like advice you would give to somebody who's looking to maybe jump into the industry and wherever they are, whether at the very beginning or just starting out? What do you think are some things to like focus on and to hone in
I
on?
mean, I think more so than ever, especially because we live in like a creator economy, creator world, it's just start making stuff. I mean, I think that nothing speaks more than something you made. Like, it's so the I think I think we were saying this before we started recording. I have this long ongoing thing that as a writer where people always come to me and say, "Oh, I want to tell you about my script. It's going to be so good." And I
Yeah.
realized, so early on, just to protect my own time, I would say to someone, "That sounds amazing. Do send me the script when it's done." And to
Yeah.
this day, like, almost no one has ever sent me the script, because uh, we everybody has a lot of great ideas. The challenge of this business that we're all in is having the tenacity to wake up every day and do it,
Yeah.
and that's done by people who are passionate and can go through like the long hours that sometimes aren't as fun as the real highs. And so I think if you're someone new to this space and you're aspiring character designer, while you're looking for a paying, just be designing characters like crazy. So when you meet someone, you go, "Look at what I did." You're an aspiring filmmaker. Make, all the things we just talked about, animation or live action. Make stuff, put it out there. YouTube. There's a ton of information out there, like what works on YouTube and what doesn't, and they always change the algorithm, but it's pretty available. YouTube makes that stuff available, and see if you can plug in, because you just don't know where it's going to come from anymore. When I
Right.
started, like, I moved to Hollywood. I applied for jobs. I found out they were looking for writers. I submitted, but I know in my own life, when I'm looking for artists on projects, like sometimes I'm going onto like these big sites where artists just dump their stuff, and I'm looking through and I find a style that I love, and I don't go then and look at their credit, like what movie did they do. I'm like, I like that. I
Yeah.
want to talk to this person, and I want
Yeah.
to find out if they'll draw for me. So I just think it's about putting yourself out there, and as much as possible, having something that's uniquely your own, right? Like
Yeah.
your consistent point of view on what design looks like, what film looks like, what writing, your voice really. Um,
Yeah.
but there's nothing beats making stuff.
Right. For sure.
And if you can't make the whole thing, just make the little part you're interested in.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's true. That's the biggest challenge is people tend to overthink and not do. I heard a great quote recently. I forgot where I heard it, but it's something to the degree of there are two types of people. There are doers and pretenders.
Right?
And there was like it was like really kind of struck. I was like, yeah, like either you're doing what you want to be doing or you're pretending that you're doing whatever it is that you want to be doing, or pretending that you're happy doing
Yeah.
something else.
I think, yeah. I mean, and I think, maybe I think I get it. There's a lot of fear in putting yourself out there, and this is something I struggled with a lot early in my career, which I always felt like everything I put out there had to be perfect, and the reality, at least of Hollywood, but it's still a reality, is that even if you put out something great and perfect, people are going to give you notes. Everyone's going to give comments. Nothing ever, it's that idea that not no artistic endeavor, writing, drawing is ever done. It's just when you hand it in.
Mhm.
And one thing that's been very liberating to me, that's really come from the amount of time I've been doing stuff on YouTube now, is that it doesn't have to be perfect. Just put it out there, see how people respond to it, and adjust from there. But if
Yeah.
you're really gonna worry about perfection, you're just never gonna put anything out there.
Right.
That's
Right.
the other quote people talk about all the time, which is, good good enough, or whatever the version is, good is the enemy of perfection, is the enemy of
Right.
good enough.
Perfection.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
if you get trapped in that cycle of it has to be perfect, it's like paralysis.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
it took me a long time to get. I've really now gotten comfortable with the idea of just putting stuff out, and not worrying about being judged for the flaws, but maybe having people appreciate what is working.
Yeah. Yeah. That's well said. So how would you say that your like style and approach has changed over the years, and from screenwriting to animation. They're kind of similar but different. It's the same industry but different skill sets.
I think, one thing that happened along the way when I started making stuff and like as a director was just I now bake a lot more into my scripts, like things that are actually producible. I think
Mm-hmm.
I think as a writer, I was always, never mindful of the budget and be like, they'll figure it out or they'll reduce it. But when you're writing something for yourself to make, you start making some really smart production decisions early on in the process. I
Yeah.
think that's very helpful. I see it now that I'm in a position where I'm hiring other writers and they bring in drafts and I'll go, okay, this is great, but we can't make this. Like you've broken all the set of assumptions. Like there's too many characters, there's too many shots, too many special effects. Like how do we take everything that you love about this and put it into a smaller box? I've really come to love like boundaries. I feel like it really the more we put something in the box, the more creative you actually get. It's
Mm-hmm.
counterintuitive, but I love like creative problem solving. I developed a thing I just always said over the course of 15 years of making these films. You're making an animated film, 400 or 500 people will work on that movie over the course of it, and your job as director is to like walk that line for several years and end up with something that's cohesive and a single vision. So, and in the independent world, you're always budget challenged. You never have enough money. You never have enough time. So the thing I always said to everyone on my crew is like, uh, you can't say no. You have to find out. You have to find a way to say yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we started saying was, there are no obstacles. There are only opportunities,
Mm-hmm.
which has actually become the logline of a different company I'm launching right now called Truck Don't Care, which is a whole lifestyle brand around my obsession with pickup trucks. But
Uh-huh.
no obstacles, only opportunities is really that like you get a bunch of creative people in a room, you can solve any problem. And maybe it it doesn't look at all like what you thought it was going to look like, but it actually accomplishes the point of that scene or the story or that character moment.
Mm.
There's like so many
Interesting.
ways to solve anything. So I think I've really come to appreciate like what is at the heart of this moment of this story, and there's probably 1,000 ways to deliver that to an audience.
Yeah.
Let's just find the one that is most compelling, most interesting, and we can actually produce, which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
and
That's the most
that's
important
sort of
thing.
yeah, it's sort of related to that other idea I'm saying about
Yeah.
like not worrying about perfection. Yes, if I had $100 million, I would have made Rally Road Racers differently, but I didn't. I had a fraction of that,
Right. Right.
so we made the movie we could. And as with all these things, also just like I've come to really love leaning on the people around me. Like Rally Road Racers, I think is a beautiful movie. Um, and no caveats. I was going to say, especially for what it is, but I just love what it looks like. And that came from like I had a real idea of what I wanted. I really knew, but then I, was fortunate enough to hire this art director and production designer, Alexi Nekitaru, who just understood what I wanted and then elevated it in ways that I could
Mm.
never have done on my own. And
Yeah.
that to me is like, animation is a team sport. You cannot do
Yeah.
animation on
Yeah.
your own. So like find people you love working with who are super talented, lean on them and let them do their thing.
Yeah.
Like
That's why
I
you bring
really,
them in the first place.
yeah, and I mean, I think I learned it because I was on the other side of it. As a writer, I worked with directors who sometimes would be really want me to like bring what I could to it, and others just wanted me to do their thing,
Mm-hmm.
and 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 you just never know what you're leaving on the table when you tell like a great artist do it this way, because you could always go back to what you want, but if it's a great artist, 9 times out of 10 they're gonna take it to a place that you just couldn't even have imagined. Great,
Yeah.
let's do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then just
When you
champion.
let them create, and you give them that freedom, it kind of allows them to really flourish.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
champion that everyone's there to support the project.
Right.
So support the people who are supporting the project.
Right. Right.
You just don't
Right.
have to be overbearing, I don't think.
Yeah.
That's what I
Yeah.
found, at least.
So I'm curious. Like, can you walk through the let's say I want to make a movie. Can you kind of walk through what's the process of the whole, from start to finish?
Like, what is the process creatively? How do you go and find money?
No, the money.
Those
That's
are,
that's
those are
the
two very different things.
that's
Like
the challenge.
let's assume you have a way to finance it.
Yeah. So the
So
financing aside, but in terms of the actual
yeah.
creative process.
So there's in animation, I think there's two schools of thought, right? And like take it. There's script driven and there's board driven. And I
Hmm.
think board driven happens a lot more in TV than in a film. But the idea of that is like there's so many great animated series and shorts out there that were driven because of a creative vision of an artist, like a
Hmm.
physical visual artist, a designer. And then there's the other side of it, which is that the whole thing is driven by the story and the script. And obviously, since I came out of writing, and that's what I've always, first identified with, um, I approach it from story. For a story and character are the most important things to me. So it all for me the film process is very like starts with an idea, flesh it out, write a script, probably write 50 drafts of the script, get as much input as I can so I can see what's working for people, what's not. And then and then from there, a script, it's a big process to write a script, and it's like anything creative, probably. Like you have an idea of what it's going to be when you start, and by the time you get to the end of it, it's become something else. It's turned into
Yeah.
what it really was going to be. And so at that point, I normally start thinking, okay, now how are we going to turn this into a movie? Again, let's get out of the world of like you got to finance and all that. Say that's not an issue. So, um, so my oldest daughter, is a writer too, and she's very talented. She's probably, I always say, which is true, she's faster and funnier and better than I am.
Mm.
And so what I used to say to her, which was like, I realized that the film like in the old sort of Hollywood paradigm, the I called the pitch the first lie, the outline the second lie, the script the third lie, and then in animation, when you get to the storyboards, now you're talking about what the movie is actually going to be. And so
Uh-huh.
the script is like, this is the story. These are the characters I love. These are the moments I love. And now we're going to take it out of the written world and put it into visuals. So the
Yeah.
storyboard and the animatic is where the movie actually happens. Because you will find out very quickly in making animatic that some of the jokes you thought were hilarious aren't funny. Some of the moments you thought were throwaway are actually like integral to the story and maybe are super funny. And then so that is like the magic of filmmaking. And in independent films or television, the most expensive part happens after the animatics, so you rarely have enough. It's all baked into the animatic. If you
Hmm.
can like nail an animatic and nail the timing and nail the stuff, most of the time in independent, you're just trying to get the downstream departments to match that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Obviously you're going to bring a lot in animation, the expressiveness and all the stuff, but so that's the process to me, which is how do you get something that you love in a script form and then turn it into a visual medium? Because scripts are for reading, animatics are for watching, and
Right.
that is going to be your movie.
Uh-huh.
So
Interesting. So you're saying so the script is very much just the basic scaffolding for any project.
yeah, I mean, you again, like in the nice thing about a script is you can contain that in yourself. It doesn't if you're doing it yourself, it doesn't have to cost any money. So you
Right.
really want to be like, do my characters have great arcs? Are they unique and interesting for some reason? Is the story, surprising in some way? Is it satisfying? Like all the real basic building blocks of why a movie is great should be in the script.
Yeah.
I don't understand why you would ever start a movie without a great script because there's so many places along the way where a movie could fall apart or be elevated. But like if you should start with a great script, and then you have to bring for me because I'm not a board artist. Then you start relying on other people. Now I got to bring in a team of board artists.
Yeah.
Can we all find like a cohesive vision of this together?
Yeah.
If so, then I have something I can now pass along to the downstream departments. But and what you hope for, the example I gave with Bradley Racers and Alexi, is you hope that everyone you've got on your team is going to take what you gave them and make it better. Everyone's
Yeah.
job is to, and that's another thing I always would say, which is when you walk into a studio and there's 200 people working on a movie, we actually all have the same job, which is when we leave at the end of the day, did we make the movie better than it was at the beginning of the day? In
Hmm.
whatever little piece you're touching. And so, um, it's the script is super important to me, and that's a bias also because I'm a writer,
Right. Right.
but then it has to sort of be abandoned and let it become a movie.
Let it evolve.
Yeah,
Yeah. So then on the
and
flip
make
side,
room for other people's ideas. I just like I
right.
really think like and just have the confidence. It's it's like easy to say no to other people's ideas. It's almost harder to say yes because you feel
Yeah.
like you're losing creative. But like, be confident enough in yourself to go. The only yardstick here is the movie. It's not
Right.
me. It's not my ego. It best idea wins. Whatever's best for
Yeah.
the movie wins.
Yeah. Yeah.
And on the flip side of that, like someone pitches you a hilarious joke, but it actually shoots a hole in your character. Don't put that joke in the movie. Like,
Right.
you have to protect your characters, protect your story. I think so, and it's certainly in the kind of stuff I do, which is in the family space, where you want it
Yeah.
to feel complete and nice.
Yeah. Yeah. So on the flip side, how do you kind of handle the business side of the whole creative world? Because obviously, that's just as, if not more important than the creative side.
How do I handle the business? Like, how do I get things made?
Yeah, as in there's the finances and just kind of also aside from the technical stuff, just the kind of not sucking the soul out of it. Like still kind of having the love for it, and not getting burnt out by having to deal with the less
A
exciting
lot.
part, the less creative parts.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways to answer. I think one thing that was a gift to me in my career is that when I started and I was first out selling movies and stuff as a writer, it was still very much like the norm. This is all predates the 2008 writer strike. The way that feature writing film business really worked was you'd get an idea, you'd go to studios, you'd pitch it. You could write specs too. I never really did that. You pitch your idea and then you get like a studio to pay you to write it. Um, if you're lucky and fortunate and did it well. And what was interesting about that was it was a counterintuitive skill set. Like, most writers like being alone, like sitting at their computer, don't necessarily want to be out there and being performative. But in order to sell a movie, when I started, you had to go out and basically, to pitch your heart out, and like in between 15 and 30 minutes, create a vision of a world in someone's mind just verbally, and hope at the end of it they go, yeah, we want to buy that, we're going to pay you to write that.
Right.
So that forced me to learn a bunch of skills early on, which was like, basically be good in a room. And that is really still very useful when it comes to, okay, I've written the movie, maybe I've pulled them together, we've made a little sizzle reel, whatever. Now I got to go pitch investors, and I have to sell people on the idea that it's a worthwhile endeavor. It could make money for all these reasons. It's going to be artistically satisfying for all these reasons. So that has been one thing that's been really helpful. And a lot of times once you have it all ready to go, you are chasing money. The amazing thing I've seen in the last several years is the amount of money you need is getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. There's just so many ways to do this now without the burden of millions of dollars. So that's
Yeah.
super encouraging and exciting. And that's what I love about YouTube. We're finding ways to do stuff really cheap. I'm about to do a new show, and I just got together with a bunch of artists who also, like, everybody is in a similar situation. Like, we all do it because we love it, but then we all take jobs because we want to do
Right.
things like pay for our house. So, but you can find other people who also just want to do things they love. And so we're just going to put up the show, and everyone's working for it for free, and we're going to
Nice.
all own it together. And so that show is costing, $0
Yeah.
technically, but it's got a lot of skill sets going into it. So,
Yeah.
um, there's that. But to answer your question about the soul sucking part of it is, I learned one lesson a really hard way, which I'll talk about in a second. But one thing I always try to keep in mind, especially like I mean, when you're directing a film and you have all these people working for you, especially in the independent space where you're really there in the studio every day and doing all this stuff, and people get, it's like herding cats. You're trying to oversee 250 artists, and
Yeah.
all of us, no matter what our art is, we all do it because we love it, we're passionate about it, we all have ideas, we all have egos, and your job is to like explain to people why their idea isn't going to work in this particular thing, and this idea is going to work, and but make everyone still, let them know they're still valuable even when you're saying no. It's part of the process. And one one thing I always defaulted to is, like, when people were getting bent out of shape, was like, look, we shouldn't get completely, we're making cartoons. Like,
Right.
we have the
Right.
best job in the world. Like, even when it's stressful, even when we have to stay up till 2 in the morning because of a deadline to show the client something, we're making cartoons. Like, we're like, most people who are in animation are doing it because they loved it when they were kids. So it's like,
Yeah.
try to keep perspective of like, you're actually doing your dream thing, even if it feels a little dream adjacent. Because like, yeah, I'm making a cartoon, but I'm making your cartoon. And I want to make mine. Okay, well, this is probably the path to that at this
Yeah.
moment. So that's one thing. And then I had one film I made, really knocked the hell out of me afterwards because I put my heart and soul into it. And then afterwards, the investors went back in and they recut the movie behind my back. And that put me into like a pretty dark place for a while. And then again, the through the line of my life, it was my wife who like one day said, okay, snap out of it. Either pick something else to do with your life or get over that and move on and protect yourself better next time. And
Yeah.
that's really how I made Rally Road Racers. When I came back to it, I was like, you know what? And it's a weird thing to say, especially as a director, I'm not going to get emotionally involved. Like
Mm.
when I show up in the day, it's one day, and the producer calls and says you can't afford that, I'm going to go, okay, what are we going to do instead? And I'm not going to fight for every. And if something's that's not saying if something's important to me, I would express myself or like with a story thing. But if it's just black and white, you can't have that. Like I said, there's 1,000 ways to get it. So
Yeah.
in Rally Road Racers was the most pleasant filmmaking experience of my life, and it went right into the pandemic, and it got extended 2 years because we had to move everything. And it was challenging, but I put a little box around it and made it my job. So
Mm.
when I was done at the end of the day, and I was with my wife and daughters, I wasn't still in Rally Road Racers and still pissed off because someone said, like, and from a mental health perspective, it changed my entire relationship to what I do, which is, I'm fortunate to do it. It's a lot of fun, but I can't let it take me out emotionally. And
Right.
and that was hard learned. And I don't know how some people will just take that and run with it, and other people have to learn it for themselves, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. You're talking a lot about like, kind of working with artists and building really solid teams. So can you talk about a little bit like how do you build and maintain those creative relationships with people across the industry to kind of, find a team that you really enjoy working with and, can help you in the future with, future projects, etc.
I mean, I think the most important thing is like be kind. I mean, I think in general, I've seen it firsthand. Like artists are pretty abused. I think the not to get conspiracy theory on you, but like this system was set up that like artists who are integral to these things working don't always get paid a lot. They work crazy hours, and I don't think they're always super appreciated. Like the amount of goodwill you get from genuinely appreciating someone or being like, wow, tonight's gonna suck, but I'm gonna stick it out with you. We're gonna do this thing together. I mean, just be a decent human would be my
Yeah.
first thing. And then, you're going to meet people along the way who are just super talented and you want to work with them all the time, but then they get picked, and they literally like you, but, cat's out of the bag. They're super talented and now Marvel's working with them and you can't get time of day with them for a creative project. And that's okay. But you're going to meet other people who will wow, that was such a pleasant. Even though things went sideways, you kept it together. You kept it light. You were always so kind. You always put human beings first. Yeah, what do you need? I'd love to do it with you.
Yeah.
I just think like it comes down to someone said to me early on in my career, like when I started starting to go to meetings, just be nice to everyone. Like when you walk into DreamWorks back in the day to pitch, the receptionist, you know, is a human being and deserves you to be kind to them. They're not the person you're pitching. And by the way, that receptionist might be the president of DreamWorks in 5 years. Like,
Right. Right.
if people remember people who are kind to them, especially in an industry where, like I said, there's a lot of ego and there's a lot of people who even just get stressed out or there's so much riding on it that in their mind they're not remembering to treat people well. So I think that's the most important thing you could do. And then, um, I also think what I said earlier, like letting people do what they're great at, is more satisfying for them. Like if you have someone and you can really trust them, and you don't have to give them notes for the sake of notes. Like again, going back to Lexi, like we'd have these weekly production meetings, and 90% of what he did, I'd say yes, I just love it. And if I didn't like it, first of all, he would take it a lot more seriously because I wasn't just trying to note everything.
Yeah.
And I think he and I we're on different things now, but we stay connected, and I know we'll work again together because we just respected each other, and
Yeah.
I understood what he did, he understood what I did, and I try to be that way with everyone. And then you're gonna have times though, especially if you're in like a leadership role, like I've been, where you hire someone and they're super talented, and you just realize they're on the wrong show, and that's hard when you have to say
Yeah.
like, I got to put the show first. You're not delivering as a writer. You're not delivering as an artist for this. And so like that to me is like the worst day ever when you have to fire someone.
Yeah.
Um, but especially because you normally hired someone because you believed in what they were going to do, and then you realize it's a mismatch. And I've been on the other side of that. I think I'm a great writer, but sometimes I'm on the wrong project.
Right.
This
Right.
happens.
Yeah. Yeah. So we were kind of, I know you have a hard out, but so we're running a little low on time here. So just one thing I'd like to hit on with everybody. So I want to hear your thoughts, and that is, how do you define success?
Really awesome question. This also changed. So the movie I referenced that went really dark, that completely like really wrecked me for like 6 months, because of everything went wrong, and I was going to be done directing. I really didn't want to direct on the movie. And so when Rally Road Racers, which was originally called The Fast and the Furious, and then it was called Silk Road Rally, when the producer called and said, "Hey, I think I have someone who's going to finance it, come to this meeting," I said, "You know what? I I don't want to put myself through that again. Why don't you just go set it up and send me a check for my script? That'll be great." And he said, "Just take this one meeting. I think you're gonna like this producer. He's different." Anyway, I went to this meeting. I really liked the producer. He understood the pain I'd been through, and like kind of in a very authentic way. It was like, that's not how I produce movies. I produce movies by protecting the director. This is your thing. And so I decided to dive in. I spoke it over with Lenore, and I really was like, I'm going to not get emotionally involved. And so what happened there was, along the way, it changed my definition of success, because when we got to the end of the movie, I finished it. We posted it in London. So I went out to London. I did the color grade. I did the mix, and then I sat in the theater to watch the whole playback, and I loved it. And I was like, you know what? I did it. I made the thing I wanted to make. There were compromises all over it. There was a million reasons it didn't look like the script, but I walked a 4-year line and got to something that I really liked. And then when I left, the next question is, in the independent movie, what are we going to do? Who's going to screen it? Is it going to make money at the box office? And I just decided at that moment, no, I have succeeded. The one thing I was charged with doing was make a great movie. Whatever happens from here on, it's someone else's job. And the truth is, it didn't get the release we wanted to, and it didn't make a ton of money at the box office. But I had taken that off my plate. Like, I wasn't going to define my success by what
Yeah.
someone else did with my movie afterwards. My success was because I'm an artist and a creator. Did I make the thing I wanted to make? Did I somehow
Yeah.
get 300 or 400 people together and we all made something that I still love? And yeah, and it was a disappointment that it didn't do very well. But what I did get to do? I got to go to a movie theater with my kids and watch in the theater and sit behind. We live in Arkansas now, so we had to go see it in Kansas, no, Oklahoma, and so I'm sitting in this random theater, and there's like a father and daughter in front of me who could never in a while think that the guy who wrote and directed this movie was sitting right behind them,
Yeah.
and like the daughter's cracking up, and there were moments when the dad is like loving some of the music choices. I even saw him take out his phone to record part of it, obviously illegal. I loved it. I was like, look
You
at
go
look at
smack it out of his hand.
look at these actual people, father and daughter, bonding
Yeah.
over, and the moments that I thought people would like, they were liking, they were laughing at. And then, and also my daughters were there, and we saw it all in the theater together, and my wife was there, and that was really satisfying. And then in the time since, like, I would go on to an airplane and see some kid watching it on an airplane and laughing. And so that's where I've come out on success. Like, I, another thing I say all the time is, I, I only control what I can control, and I control nothing. So that's how you define success. It's like, I'm just gonna do the best thing I can, and I cannot, if the movie had gone on to make $1 billion, that would have been amazing and it would have been gravy. But my previous film, I was so wrapped up in the box office and this and that, and it was just so ugly, not
Hmm.
fun to live through. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah, that's awesome. Sounds like you're in a better place for it also.
I am in a better place. I really I feel very fortunate to get to do what I do. And now I do it. I get to work with my wife sometimes. I work with my daughter sometimes. And
Yeah,
and and I make a lot of stuff for YouTube. I have a fun job where I'm like, the creative chief creative officer of this YouTube first studio out of New York, and we work with fun clients and we make things, and it's I don't know, it just
that's
as,
awesome.
as long as it stays fun, I'm gonna
Right.
keep doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. Where can everybody find you online? They got the YouTube. You got you got a few places.
That's a great question. One thing I haven't gotten around to doing very well is and this again, my wife Lenore's been saying we got to do this, is like get a website up and going that really supports it. We do have a website, EDH Animation, which is currently down, so we're gonna, because we're retooling it, so we're gonna put that back up. You can definitely check out. Please check out Storytime with Winnie the Pooh. It's just starting. There's very little content there, but I'm very proud of it. It was made with a tiny team for a tiny budget, and go watch Rally Road Racers. I love that movie. I think it's rentable everywhere. Apple, Amazon. I think it's currently on Peacock. If you have Peacock, watch it. It's great. J.K. Simmons, John Cleese, Chloe Bennett, Sharon
Awesome.
Horgan. It's a big fun movie, and yeah. But I'm on Instagram a little bit. I'm on Twitter a little. I'm X. I'm. I keep saying I'm gonna get better at that stuff, but I'm not sure I will.
Well, thank you so much. And it was really enjoyed talking with you.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on the show, and best of luck with
Yeah.
this. It's really,
Thank
I
you.
love what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right. Take care.